was interesting, and so she was flying in to Johannesburg from Cape Town after people had realized that she became the president, and every journalist was asking me, "Congratulations, Soma, congratulations. Could you please tell us how are you going to fill Begi's shoes?" So she thought about this a lot, and then for some reason she came up with, I think, one of the most perfect answers I've ever seen, and it's in her book. She says, "I have no intention of wearing men's shoes." Rather the woman that I am, I'm bringing 5 prayers into my presidency. Heels to stand tall and look my male peers straight in the eye. Sneakers so that I could be agile to navigate leadership. Sandals with flowers so that I don't take myself too seriously. Boots with spikes to kick butt. And slippers for tiptoeing and moving steadily. But I will also wear both barefoot to remain humble and keep in touch. This for me was so important because that anchored in identity, that I'm going to look everybody in the eye and I'm going to be myself, but I'm not going to be apologetic. Yes. And most of us, when we become apologetic, it affects how we build. And so the second thing, that's where I really wanted to spend more time in. But the second thing is that the other thing we need for this positioning is future orientation. So I think sustainable wealth creation requires long-term thinking, intergenerational thinking, strategic patience, and delayed gratification. It's really amazing what we put ourselves through if we don't have strategic patience, if we don't have delayed gratification. And if you like books about internal stuff, the stuff that we love, one of the books that I recommend is Drive by Daniel Pink. It's about the surprising truth about what actually motivates us. Because if you can figure out what really motivates you, there are certain things that no longer move you. Right? There are certain things that you're no longer going to struggle with, and so it's very, very important for me. And one of the things I want to land is that many of us, when we think about positioning and building, we think that we must be so self-centered that the only way to really succeed is to provide after self. And that's an interesting one for me. Beautiful study done by Adam Grant and colleagues. So they go to a hospital, they need to have a campaign on saving lives. So if you think about COVID, for example, they want to encourage people to use masks, to sanitize and so on. And the first thing they do, the first campaign, they say, please use masks and so on to protect yourself from harm. And then they come again, they say, please use masks and sanitize to protect others. And they wanted to see which one will have the impact on the use. Do you know that most people complied when we said protect others from getting sick? So this is interesting because we think generally we are self-orientated, but it turns out that human beings actually, we want to, our self-concept, we want to know that we're making a difference in other people's lives. Why am I landing this in this kind of circle and positioning? Because I think Adam Grant, after that, in this book called Give and Take, he identifies reciprocity styles that affect how people network. So whether people are givers, takers, and matcher, affects whether they can build long-term wealth or not. So in other words, givers, they generally give, they can burn out, they often achieve the highest long-term success by building strong networks and promoting a win-win culture. Takers aim for personal gain, while matchers balance giving and taking. So matchers are like, let's transact. And when you have been hurt, you overcorrect. So if you are a giver, and you were hurt by people who never reciprocate. Unfortunately, what then happens, you overcorrect. You end up taking, but then you are repelling the people that are quality in your life. Now, unfortunately, they've met you when there's a wound. They're trying to match you. They have a great energy, but when you are still dealing with those people, right, who have hurt us. So we have to reflect about this, because when you build a circle like this and you want to build with people long term, if you have takers only, it will never be sustainable. Yes. And it's very important for us. So if you think about this idea then of networking with a scarcity mindset versus networking with an abundance mindset is very, very critical for me. Because I think we end up repelling people by having that scarcity mindset. You know, I don't know if you've ever networked with someone who sounds so desperate as if they haven't eaten today. You're like, yeah, when if you chilled, we could have built something amazing together. And so it's very important in how we show up. Number 3, adaptive capacity. I think it's going to help us that if we're going to build long term, we have to have that agility, cognitive flexibility, and open to change, because the world is changing. And if we have circles like this, once in a while, you have someone already here who is studying the future, who knows how to do scenarios. They share in some of our circles, so this is what happens in some of my circles. There's always someone who's more, who knows better about a certain topic. So next month we come and listen to you. And you don't have to say mind-blowing things, just 1 or 2 things that can help us, you're fine. The next time it's someone else, the next time it's someone else. And you know how that is important, because again, everyone wants to know that they are contributing something. So it equalizes the relationship very, very nicely. So that's very quickly. I think Oskido is one of the most, when I think adaptability, I always think about this guy. Because, I mean, tell me why this guy was coming to my school in Pafukang in 1997 to come and perform. I remember he had just started Brothers of Peace, and and with Don Laga and Bruce, they used to come and say, 20 years ago. But my daughter now is the one who tells me about Oskido. Dad, here's this guy from TikTok. And I'm like, damn, that's longevity. Wow. It's like the people that we grow up with, our kids still look up to. That's amazing. And I think it's this idea of longevity, strategic patience, adaptability, and reverse mentoring. So one of the things that Oskido does very well is reverse mentoring. So everyone Oskido has mentored, including Abu Maporis and so on, they end up reverse mentoring them. So he's always adept to the new things, because the same boys I've mentored, they are now telling me about the new stuff. So mentor young people, and they will reverse mentor you. And it will create longevity in your own career. Global relevance and positioning is number 4. I only have 5 and then I'll shut up, I promise. Building visible intellectual capital, create and share original ideas. This one I was imagining a toolbox. Dando knows I love this. I guess it comes with being someone who teaches once in a while. So this is how I think about global positioning. Is that on the one hand, you have someone who's globally recognized. On the one hand, you have local relatability. I think sometimes you could be so relatable local to a point that other people globally cannot relate to. So if you think about this, that many of us, actually the way we posture as that's a local champion. And when many people are thinking about us, that he's a very highly relatable guy. We like him, you know. He's going to succeed at home. We trust him. He's going to talk to our people, you know, in the way they understand. But that then means that you don't have that global relevance stuff. Where we obviously want to be, where some of us are, is that quadrant 2. So we want to be a global player. We want to be slightly less relatable, not too much, slightly less relatable, but highly relevant global. Think Trevor Noah. So Trevor Noah, when he left to go to the US, many people in South Africa, he used to be so funny. Once upon a time, he was so funny because they're thinking about Trevor Noah, the Daydreamer. The Daydreamer special was a South African local champion. But he can't do Daydreamer anymore. The more global he becomes, the less relatable. So the fact that you no longer find him funny says more about you, not him. And it says more about your own exposure and so on. So let's think about this. You don't have to be too disconnected, but it's important that we posture different. And there's some ideas on how we can do this. I think Shimza is doing the same thing. It's funny when he introduced, I remember